back to Knucklehead Garage. Today we are preparing to start the chop of the top.
We got a lot of prep work to do, and Cal's digging and he's clearing out the inside of this cab. I want to do that before I actually take it into the garage. We have to take out the rest of the glass from the doors, those vent windows. We got to figure out how to take the windshield out. Then the big push is going to be getting Rat Rob into the garage up here. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this is actually a pretty good grade that we're going to have to overcome. So I'm going to probably recruit some people to do that. Once I get it in the garage, I'm gonna start laying out the chop. And I'm gonna do a little bit more than just pieces of electrical tape. I'll probably get the level, the laser, all that stuff out and really lay it out so you guys can see what my plan is before we actually make any sparks. So let's do it.
We found this in the driver's side door, and I think it's a window cleaner, and we got Rat Rob clean enough to get inside the garage.
We are back. It's been a couple days. We're about to get Rat Rob in the garage, but I had to do a couple things to get his new home ready, which includes consolidating the cars that I have, utilizing the lift, getting the Scout up there. I did have to change the wheels and tires to get smaller diameter. I had to put the tailgate down to just barely fit the door there. But that allowed me to get Wally to back in. And now these guys will be double stacked for the winter. The Scout may be done for the season, but I'm gonna keep Wally going as long as I can. Rat Rob is still residing where he was. We gotta figure out how to get him from here to here. And as I already mentioned, it's actually steeper than it looks. And now fall is here, and there's pine needles and there's leaves. I'm gonna go ahead and blow these off just to not lose any traction as we're getting that thing up there. So I've got a couple friends coming over who are gonna help me. I'm hoping that there's actually not much human pushing going on. I'm gonna try to leverage Wally to do some of the pushing, come along, straps, all that good stuff so we don't break anyone's backs. And if all goes well, I think this is something that could be done in a couple hours. So let's do it. The plan to get Rat Rob in the garage was 3 phases. First phase was to get Rat Rob out of his current parking spot and get him a lot closer to the garage. I could have used any vehicle to pull him, but I thought it'd be pretty cool to use Wally, and I was already planning on using him for another phase of the move. The second phase was to get Rat Rob turned around. I wanted him backed up into the garage, which just included a multi-point turn to get him pointed in the right direction. I had to get Wally back down the driveway so that I could actually use him to push, but there was one more turn I had to do to get Rat Rob lined up, and I ended up using a come-along strapped to a tree just to get him a little bit more up the driveway so I could do one more turn to get him faced in the right direction. We're hoping now the rest of the push can be done by Wally. So we're gonna fashion up a redneck bumper here to be able to push on and not do any damage to either vehicles. We'll see how that works.
All right.
License plate right on there.
Right there? Yeah, sure.
The third and final phase, once the bumper was installed on Rat Rob, was to get Wally backed up in position to do the final push. Well, we got to push mode, but I found the weak spot on Wally for now. The clutch wasn't having it. So we're gonna go to plan B. We provisioned for plan B. We're gonna try to hook up some stuff that we can actually winch Rat Rob the rest of the way. That was a bummer, but I don't want to put any more damage on the clutch. Plan B of phase 3 included a bunch of cinder blocks, which you can see us unloading from the truck here. It involved building a structure of cinder blocks that were pushing up against the foundation wall, attached to a pretty big LVL that was left over from a house renovation that we strapped to that we could then winch Rat Rob up the rest of the way. I'm certainly glad that we had this plan B provision, but man, this took forever and it was pretty exhausting. Although after a little while we got the hang of it, got in the groove, so much so that as Rat Rob got closer and closer to the garage, we actually forgot to close the driver's side door and couldn't get him in, so we had to actually move forward a couple feet. But eventually we got to the point where we could just push him the rest of the way. Joe, how much further do we have?
That's it.
We got Rat Rob safely in the garage, and that took 2 hours. It would have taken probably half that time if Wally's clutch had stayed strong. But I'm glad I stopped when I did because his clutch seems fine. I was able to back him in, no issue. So the next step is I gotta remove the windshield. I also gotta remove the rest of the glass on the side, the vent windows. My main focus is gonna be on this windshield because I'm gonna try to take this out without damaging it so that I could potentially use it after the chop. Obviously I will have to cut it down and figure that out down the road, but I wanna try to salvage that the best I can. The first step is gonna just be, gotta get these windshield wipers off, which was easy for that one. Hopefully this one comes out just as easily. It's just splined. There we go. I wonder if I can just... Oh my gosh. I don't know if you guys can tell, but that whole windshield is moving. This is ultimately where I need to be. I need to get all the rubber from in front of the windshield out so that I can actually just push this whole thing out at once. So I'm gonna keep plugging away around the whole perimeter and hopefully get to a point sometime soon that I can get this thing out. Finally got the rubber out to the point where I'm gonna start trying to push, and I've woken my daughter up to help me because I don't want to break this piece of glass. So I'm gonna get inside, see if I can push it, and hopefully Mabel, you gotta kind of catch it. Not catch it, but make sure it doesn't go anywhere. You got it? So I'm gonna hit it a little bit, like, see how it's already coming out? I'm gonna go around and just make sure that I can kind of get it loose. It's definitely loose there. I might be able to push it from the bottom. There we go. Okay, perfect. There we go. All right, now just hold it like that. Yeah! What do you think, Mabel?
I like it.
You like it? And Mabel's reward for getting up, she gets to pull all of this extra rubber out. It should come right out. Nice. Pull it out of there. definitely rusty, but no holes. That's good. Cool. Thank you, Mabel. There are a couple pieces I do want to take out here before I start laying out the chop. There are some trim pieces in here that look like they're riveted, so I might just hold off until I actually do the chop. It's probably going to be easier once I actually have this door sliced, but at least I'm going to get the vent windows out and any of this extra trim before I start laying stuff out. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oops. Okay. Well, I ended up taking a different approach. I had to take out the whole, what they call like the garnish railing to give me access, which I should have done from the beginning. And I had the manual right in my shop, and I should have just done that, but oh well. I'm not planning on reusing this stuff, so shouldn't be a big deal. One more screw. Of course, it's not going to come out. Oh yeah, there we go. It's always the jobs that you think are going to take literally 2 minutes that take 45 minutes, but that's the way it goes. We are finally ready for the layout of the chop. And I've done a lot of research on YouTube, and I found a lot of really good videos of people doing chops to this type of truck, or actually this era of truck, whether it be Chevy, Ford, or even International. They all kind of have the same side profile. And of course I was hoping for a one solution for everything, and everyone does it the same way, and it's easy for me to just copy. But as you can imagine, everyone does it differently because of how much they're going to chop, or what is the rake, or just their personal preferences. This is how I'm going to do it. I've studied those videos. I've sat out here and stared at this thing for probably way too long. And as you can tell by the rough masking tape that's already there, I have my approach set. It's also worth mentioning, I am not going to Bondo this thing. I am not going to paint it when it's done. Not that I don't want it to look good. In fact, I think it's kind of the opposite. If I'm not using Bondo and I'm not using paint, I'm going to force myself to make this thing as perfect as it's going to be. It's not going to be perfect. I like the idea of just people being able to see how it was done. Where was it cut? How much was it cut? How was it put back together? Where all the welds are. And once I'm done, I'm just going to let it age to just kind of match the patina of the rest of the truck. I'm also going to try to not put any new metal in it. And because I'm actually taking metal out by chopping this thing, I think I'm going to be able to actually use some parts that I take out and put them in other places and still make it look like it was kind of always there. When figuring out how much I want to chop out, I didn't just pick a number. In fact, I still don't even know what that number is exactly, but what I'm after is to line up these windows. You can see the split windows in the back, the top of it lines up pretty nice with the top of the side window there, but the bottom does not. And the bottom here, I want to get down to match the bottom of the side window. And I have roughly measured that to be about 6 inches, but I'm just going to take out whatever it ends up being to actually line up the bottom of those windows. I'm not adding any rake to this. I think the 6-inch drop is going to be dramatic enough. I don't think a rake is going to really fit the overall lines of the truck. I started by doing 2 things. First, I'm checking the fitment of the door to the body, and I'm really just looking for a relatively even gap all the way around the door here. And surprisingly, both the driver's side and the passenger side fit pretty well. And that's something I'm going to be checking periodically, especially when I start cutting the door and making sure that this thing can close and then the gaps stay relatively even. The second thing I've done is level the truck. And I did that just by jacking up the front and stacking some cinder blocks and some wood under the front beam. And there are 2 reasons why I did this. The first is just to start with a good foundation. I wanted to know that I'm level front to back, but also level side to side. And I can come back, make sure nothing shifted as I've cut anything or done anything weird. But the real reason is I am going to use a laser level. If the truck's level, the lines are going to be level, which means when I make a line, horizontal line where it's shown there, and then I move it up a little bit, make another horizontal line. Those should match really nice when it comes back together. So I'm going to do some more measuring, some more laser shooting, some more tape layout, and I'm going to show you guys the final layout before I actually start to do any chopping on this thing. I've now got enough laid out that I can do the chop. And the first thing I did was take some measurements with the laser to see how far off the bottom of this window was to the bottom of the side, and it was exactly 6 inches. So I couldn't have planned that any better. I did have to contend with a couple things inside, which I wasn't really thinking about. A lot of this cab is double walled in a couple places, which is common. But in the back, behind the driver, there are these 2 ribs or these 4 ribs that I had to make sure I was not going to be cutting through. And the 6 inches lined up perfectly. I didn't do any final layout of the roof. I figured it's going to be a lot easier to have that done once I know how much I need to extend it. I am going to do the pattern where it's coming down a little bit here. I'm going to offset it and come down. I'm going to try to use this piece here if possible. And I'm also planning on using this whole back section that I cut for that extension in the roof. So I think I have this laid out, so I will be able to move stuff around to not add any metal at the end of the day. I also spent a fair amount of time laying out the chop on the windshield, and it's a little bit trickier than the B pillar back there, which is I was just treating as pure vertical with that 6 inch. This is leaned back by 22 degrees. So I had to do a little bit of trig and basically figure out what that hypotenuse dimension should be. Ended up being about 6 5/16, so almost an inch longer here. I am still gonna cut this first and leave this until I get the roof off, extend it a little bit, and then hopefully I can put it back on and just double check my math before I actually make this cut. I also spent a good amount of time trying to make sure that the A pillar on that side was symmetric to this. Not so much just the truck is symmetric, but I really spent some time making sure that this section here was as straight as possible. Again, so if I can get this down here, maybe I can actually cut the windshield and reuse that. As you guys can tell, I did not lay out the chop on the door yet. I'm considering that secondary. Primary goal is to get the roof cut off, extended, and actually tacked back into place, and then I'll turn my attention to the doors. When I'm doing the roof work, obviously I'll have to get this out of the way. I'm gonna keep it hinged and just try to work around it the best I can. I do know roughly what sections I want to take out so that I can reuse sections, etc. But I really want to get the roof kind of squared away before I turn my attention there. We are finally ready to chop, and I am super psyched. And that's going to be next episode. I'm going to dig right in and cut this roof off with a goal by the end of the episode to actually have the roof back in place. So there will be a lot of cutting, a lot of welding, so stay tuned for that one. And as always, if you guys like this stuff, make sure you share, subscribe, comment, like, all that good stuff, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.